Okay, so we're going to be using paneling tools through Grasshopper. Um, the first thing that I want to do to set up is just make a surface. And I want to attach that, eventually I'm going to want to attach that surface within Grasshopper. Um, so I have paneling tools. The first thing I want to do is panel um, the surface. So I want to do surface domain number. And what I see is I need a surface and two numbers that's gonna panel the surface. So I'm gonna input a surface component, set one surface, plug that in, and by default it's already set up to 10 and 10, which for now it's fine. I could always come back and I can change that. All right, so the next thing I want to do, I'm going to go back to paneling tools. I'm going to do panel 3D, and I just want to do morph 3D. And I can see a couple things that it needs. I need two sets of grids and the objects that I want to panelize. So I already have one set of grid, or one set. So I'm gonna need another one. So I'm gonna take this and I'm just gonna copy paste. It needs its own surface because if it doesn't, it will have a thickness of 0. So nothing's really gonna happen. So what I want to do is I want to use my original surface to offset it. So I double click offset surface. Make sure you click the surface icon, not the curve icon. So I'm going to take that surface and I'm going to offset it. And it's probably already offsetting it some distance, 0. Okay. And then I want to add in a slider. And I'm going to maximize this. Say, for example, I'll do 30. I'll plug that in. So now I can start to offset that surface. And I can use that surface here. So now I have my two sets of grid points. And I'm going to panelize something in between them. And this is still adjustable. So I'm going to plug these in. I have my first grid point, my second, and just some object to start to panelize. I'm just going to make a tube. It doesn't matter what size. I can hover over here and look at the little hexagon symbol that it's giving me. It just needs some kind of geometry. So I come over here, look for that same symbol. There's geometry. Set one geometry. And let it plug in, and as soon as it does, it's now paneling in between those two. So let's make this a little bit more interesting. Now that this is running through Grasshopper, I can have a little bit more control and design freedom. I want to adjust the number of my UVs. Alright, so I'm going to double click. I'll do 10. I'm going to plug that in. I'm going to use that one slider to control both the U's, and I'm going to take that slider and copy paste, and have that one slider control both of the V's, because I want those numbers to be the same. The V's for those to match up, and then the U's to both match up. So now I can adjust the sliders, obviously. Put that back at 10. We'll adjust this one. I can now adjust this. I'm going to hide a couple things. I'm going to right click on offset, and I'm going to go to preview. I'm going to right click on my grid points and preview those, or on preview I'm going to right click on surface and on preview that. I can come into my wireframe in Grasshopper and Rhino, so I can start to see how that looks. I'm going to change the view of this a little bit. Instead of it being a ghosted red, I'm going to come over here and click on the orange, half white circle. I'm going to click drag one of these colors into where it says normal, into that box. So now I can see this thing a little bit better. What I could also do now at this point is I can adjust my original surface. So say, for example, if I turn on the control points now of my original surface, I only have 4 points. I guess if I move 2 of them up, I don't know if it'll really do a whole lot. Yeah. So I hit escape. I'm going to select the surface and type in rebuild. I'm going to do my degree, I'm going to keep it at 3 and 3. And my point count, I'll do, I don't know, let's just do like 5 and 7. Let's see what that does. So now when I turn on my control points for the surface, I should have more points where I can start to edit this object. So for example, if I select those points in the middle and I just move them up, I can start to edit that surface, and the everything that's being panelized on there is being updated as well. So again, just to show you what's happening, I'm going to turn this one off, turn the preview off, turn this preview on. So I'm adjusting this surface, which is, this surface is running through Grasshopper, so it's adjusting the offset, and it's also adjusting the control points on both. Alright, so if I come back in here, if I select multiple components and I hit the spacebar, I get this thing that pops up, and it gives me similar commands where I can disable preview. So I can do that on multiple components instead of having to individually right-click on each one. So I can come back here to Rhino, turn on, or select the surface, turn on the grid points. And I can select these, for example. I have my gumball turned on, so I can scale these out. Move this thing around a little bit. So you come to this side. And I'm just going to rotate this. So I can start to adjust my surface, and if I come back here and I turn this on, let me disable that. I can start to see how this is getting paneled in a different way. Also, the nice thing about this running through Grasshopper is I can come back to my original surface, my original object that I'm panelizing, and I can say, for example, I can type in the command solid point on, select that point, and I can drag this up. And now that changes the shape of my original tube. Let's take this outside one, just drag it down a little. Nope, maybe not. That one. Drag this up a little bit. There you go. So I can change the size of my original tube, and that in turn changes the size of my, or changes the way the object that's being panelized. If I want this thing flipped, an easy way to do this is I just flip the order of my grid points. So I'm going to disconnect both of them. And I'm going to drag the top one into the second one and the bottom one into the first one. And then now that flips my original object, and it flips the way it's being panelized. So again, because it's running through Grasshopper, I have a little bit more control with the design and the way this is being edited.